myself out.
I'm ready to go.
Thank you. That way I can dig in my pocketbook for you. Call to order the regular county council meeting Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024. We always start with a pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to break from the agenda and go ahead and swear in. We have a new police officer, Austin. Russell. So that Austin can get out here and go do other things he needs to do. Good evening. And you repeat after me. I solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution.
I solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution.
And will obey the laws of the United States.
And will obey the laws of the United States.
And the state of Tennessee.
And the state of Tennessee.
That I will, in all respects, observe the provisions of the Charter. Let's stop at the law.
Yeah, that's the law.
That I will, in all respects, observe the provisions.
That I will, in all respects, observe the provisions
of the Charter and ordinances of the town of White Bluff.
of the Charter and the ordinances of the town of White Bluff,
Dixon County, Tennessee.
Dixon County, Tennessee.
And that I will not demean myself
And that I will not demean myself
in my official capacity as member of the police department.
in my official capacity as a member of the police department.
I pledge myself to serve faithfully,
I pledge myself to serve faithfully,
honestly,
honestly,
and with due regards to the welfare of the town of White Bluff.
and with due regards to the welfare of the town of White Bluff,
Tennessee, to the best of my ability.
Tennessee, to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. Now, Austin, need you to sign. Oh, our legal. You know, it might be good if you sign. Swearing all this.
Well, the autograph won't be worth as much.
There you go, and then I'll sign it here. Can I have a roll call, please?
Tanya Reed. Here. Carlton Kay.
Present.
Stephen Merle.
Here.
Ryan Hill.
Here.
Scott Glover.
Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of the August 6th meeting?
I make a motion to approve the August 6th, 2024 meeting minutes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, minutes now go to the record. Referring to the public comment sheet, we don't have anyone that wants to speak about anything on the agenda tonight. We do have a person that wanted to speak on the rezoning and adjoining lots at the corner of White Bluff Road and Jordan Circle. As of now, that has been withdrawn. The person that was submitting this has asked this be withdrawn. But, Mr. Charles Buck, you can still speak if you would like to.
That's okay then, I didn't know you withdrew, so,
I just found out.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so no one wants to speak. We're going down. No one wants to speak on the public hearings, on the property tax rate, on, parking.
Mayor, those are just regular public
Yeah,
hearings.
those are regular public hearings, and no one wants to speak on those.
We still have to open.
Open it
and-
up.
Open it,
Yeah.
okay, they don't have to sign up, right?
They do not have to set up the
Oh,
public
right.
hearings, just open.
Okay, that has not been changed, and I just have not got with the program yet. Okay, closing the council meeting, public hearing meeting before the second final reading of an ordinance to adopt and levy a property tax rate. Anyone want to speak? Meeting closed. Public hearing, well, I was gonna open it up again. Oh, shit, sorry,
But I
didn't
did, you didn't hear me, it was kind of quiet. I was just surprised I was the only one.
see. Okay,
Would you mind pushing a button?
The gray button?
Yes, ma'am, it should light up.
Okay. So usually before I come before y'all, I write things out and have it all down and pretty much memorized. I think leaving this at .60 will increase my property tax by 54%. I know I am not alone in that. And you may not think that's a lot, but to a lot of people it is. And I think leaving it at .60 to fund this wish list budget, which is what is pretty much going to have to be done to fund the budget, is just wrong to put that on us. So I really think a lower tax rate is more appropriate.
okay, thank you. Anyone else want to speak? Public hearing is closed. Public hearing before the second and final reading of an ordinance to revise zoning, ordinance Article 4, supplementary provisions applying to specific districts, Section 4.010 for off-street parking requirements. Anyone want to speak on that? No one. That public hearing is closed. Public hearing before second and final reading of an ordinance to revise zoning ordinance Article 2 definitions. Article 3, by adding Section 3.140, open space standards, and Article 5, residential density, and repealing any ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith. Anyone want to speak on that? Not missing anybody? Public hearing closed. Come on down to communication from the mayor. We have already sworn in and welcomed our new police officer, Austin Wilson. The Main Street Festival is in work, Saturday, October the 12th, 2024. We've got about, what have we got, about 60 vendors, 50 or 60 vendors so far, do you know?
Just started looking at it today, but it looks like to be around that number, yes.
Okay, all right. And a full, well, I said full day music. Actually, the festival doesn't start till 12, and it's scheduled to close at 6, but we all know that people start coming at 11. You know, in fact, that's the official time. So I know we have full day music, we have a lot of vendors, a lot of good food. It's always one of the highlights of our town.
When's
Anyone?
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
The last day you sign up to be a vendor,
I'm not in charge of that anymore, but what I said was, you know, if you pulled up and you wanted a booth and we had one available, you could still take it. So I didn't put a close down on it.
how many booths are available?
So it depends on how many people want double or triple booths. Right now, I think I had it marked off at like 97 booths total, and I think we have at least between 50 and 60 of them taken. So there's plenty, still left.
Who is the point of contact now?
That would be Brandolyn Stewart.
And I assume charitable organizations are welcome.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any more questions? Okay. We'll move on down to budget and finance review, the July 2024 financial statement. You have that in your packet, we talked about it Thursday, but if anybody has any, do you have any more questions, do you have any new information?
I'll send you Brandon's contact. Send you Brandon's contact.
Thank you.
This includes the local government investment pool, if you have any questions or comments about that as well.
Melody?
It's on that back, on the very back, it's let's see.
I think at the work session, there was
Yeah,
questions or comments about,
yeah, you
Yeah.
checked into it.
I checked into it, so to clarify, again, it's a little different to have general fund money and grant money in a pool earning interest. It's a positive thing, but the interest earned off of any funds is not restricted. It stays in the pool until the CMFO or this council acts to adjust it. So the number you see in there that you're going to get every month is the number that's in there unless y'all decide to do something with it. But if there's $1 million in grant in there and it's generating interest, it doesn't have to be applied to the grant. It can be, but again, it's not restricted. The original grant funds are what is restricted, so whatever that number is.
Any more questions?
did you want to request that the report be more detailed in the future, or?
Well, I did, and Andrew's going to check on that.
Yeah, I think we were looking, again, because of the way it's considered not technically a revenue, it's just general fund growth, which I know sounds a little odd. I'd spoken to Melody and Misty, and they were going to look at how it could get into the system. It may just have to be some type of journal entry, but candidly, when it's in this fund, it's not in your checking account. If y'all ever did elect to pull money from this fund back into your regular general fund checking account, that could be noted as a journal entry, and that would appear on the financial statement. Again, that's part of the reason, because this is relatively new for the town having this investment pool. You have a separate sheet behind the normal software that shows the financial statement. And again, if you ever pulled money out, I think it would show up. We can continue to look at that. I don't know, Misty or Melody, if y'all have additional thoughts, but that's kind of what we...
Yeah,
You might have misunderstood me, I don't know, but all I wanted to know was the beginning and balance. I wanted it broke down into what's grant, what's not grant, and the interest earned. I wanted a total year-to-date for that. That was all I was really wanting. Nothing that you can't discern doing that. I'm just trying to...
that just sounds like more information on the final sheet.
Right.
you know, how much of this is grant money, how much of it is fund balance. Okay.
Yeah, I think, Melody, do
Yeah.
you have that ability?
Yeah, I'm just that.
So year-to-date and how much, the grant money would stay stagnant, so once you have that entry, you know what's grant money now.
But I just sleep at night, so I forget to...
Correct, same. And I guess in theory, if the town got additional grant money and put in here, you'd want to know that one as well, so, okay. That makes sense, thank you.
But, yeah, I was just...
You want to know how much is grant money and how much is came out of our regular general fund, correct?
Or what, however it breaks down, if there's 3 sources of the money or 5
Yeah.
sources of the money, and plus, starting date, and because this doesn't go along with our fiscal year, it was put in, I assume, August.
It was August of 23.
This sheet would be August to July, and then start over again. But it was just be nice to know. So I get text every day, what's in my checking account, because I can't remember day to day.
Of course, in the budget, it shows, I think it was $957,000 that's in there for grant. Just look at your budget, and they'll tell you what's in there for the, not that budget, but I'm talking about the budget that you all have. It tells on it, on the line item budget,
Right.
what part of that is grant.
But seeing as this piece of paper is all self-contained, and what it does, it's just nice to have it all on there.
Yeah, so what amount is grant money, and then what's the year to date? And I assume you want to go fiscal year.
No, year-to-date, as far as when it was put in,
Yes.
because this doesn't operate on our fiscal year.
No, yeah, I mean, it's continuous, so, yeah.
Just a rolling.
It's just, continuing.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, consider on second final reading an ordinance to adopt and levy a property tax rate. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
I do have a question because I think that I was not at one of the work sessions a couple of months ago, but I know that interest earned from the local investment pool, that cannot be used for reoccurring expenses. But for some of the things we approved, like, I don't know, the scanning services or the police cars, I don't know if that would fall under it or not, but is there a potential of us using some of that interest money for some of those one-time purchases, and then that enabling us to have a lower tax rate? I mean, was there any?
I'd have to think on that, Stephanie, just to give you an answer now. I'd be afraid to do that.
I think the biggest issue is going to be timing at this point, because that rate was in the budget, and this is more procedural, because we passed second reading of the budget before we had the certified rate from the county. We're required by law to have a separate vote, which is unusual, but that's state law. If this body, just to know your full options, if this body were to alter the tax rate, we would need probably 2 special call meetings this month. You'd have to adopt a new budget because of what's in the budget, which is
We based our budget on 60%.
right. So if that's the will of the council, we'd have to get 2 meetings this month because the property tax bills go out in October.
Any further discussion?
So, to piggyback Stephanie, there's no way to discuss that at this meeting.
Well, I mean, this is before y'all. Y'all are welcome to discuss a tax rate, but if this body were to alter, we would have to have a couple special call meetings to alter the budget. So you have to see they have to align.
David already looked at our general fund budget, and they said it was good. So I don't know if that was on top of anything or not.
Okay, do we have any further discussion? Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Sure. Reed,
Yes.
Kincaid,
Yes.
Merle,
No.
Hill,
Yes.
Glover.
No.
Okay. Second reading confirmed. And down, consider the bids for the electronic sign at Whitehorse Town Hall. We had a question the last time, I think, legal about, we only received 1 bid, even though we put it out for bid, just like we're supposed to.
Right. So obviously, this body, when you put something out for bid, you are not required to accept any bid you get. You can have 1 bid, you can have 12 bids. that it's put out for bid so that you have information. And sometimes you are gonna get one bid, we see it very regularly. We went and looked, and Melody, I don't know if you saw anything, but we don't have a policy in place on how many bids are required under the Purchasing Act. I didn't find anything that said you have to have more than one. There are jurisdictions that talk about, I've seen policies, and we don't have one, so it could be something for later discussion about, in the under 25,000, when the purchasing agent or department head's buying something, if it's like over 5,000 but below 25, they have to get at least 2 quotes. Certain things like that do happen, but when you put it out for public bid, you're getting back whatever you get back. So I didn't see any issues with that, but again, if the council or the later work session wants to talk about purchasing policies, we can certainly get into that.
Have we ever had any bids where we just received one?
Sure.
Can you tell us what they were?
Trash.
Right.
Trash, recently.
And trash, paving, have we had some paving bids before? Yeah, where we just received one. Okay. So we're considering the bid, we budgeted 45,000, bids come in at 43,000, a little bit over 43,000. Do I hear a motion to accept the bid?
I'm gonna make a motion to accept the bid for the sign at $43,080.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it, but I have a question.
Mr. Burns is here.
Yeah.
That bidded on it. Y'all need any questions for him?
Yes.
You want to come up, Mark? You want to come up?
That's why I was so hesitant on my phone. Got questions.
Always at least one.
So we've got a motion and we've got a second. So now it's open for discussion.
Brian's giving me the side. My question is this a double-sided sign? What is what's the control unit look like? How does that sync up? I just have a question, because this is great, but this is one side.
It is a double-sided sign.
Okay.
It is actually a cloud-based program that will be programmed from the computers here in your office, or whoever you give access to.
Is it web-based program?
It is a web-based program.
It's web-based program. Perfect. So it doesn't matter if it's PC, Mac, anything like that?
That's correct.
Okay. Wonderful. That was really just for all I want to know. I never agree with this thing. I was like, is it one side or two sides?
Just in case I have questions.
Are any other designs considered in getting an estimate? Because I think all along I had just been envisioning something that was more basic, not that had the rock wall with it or the stone wall.
The only thing I will say, so the reason I was hesitating in the second, because, everybody here has their constituents, whatever. It's my understanding that you guys, it was more your people pushing for this for open clarity. I'm not so much concerned about that, but we've come so far, at this point, I'm on board. That's what people want, I'm good with it. I caution against going too budget friendly, because, and I won't throw them under the bus, but there's places that have digital signs, you can't see what it says, you go down the road, you can't read it, and I hesitate to even say you can read it if you're standing there. And so, I think if we're going to do it, we need to do it. And if we're not going to do it, then that's fine with me too. But I think, to me, if you can't drive by and safely see what it says without, I don't know that we should put that up there. So, if we're gonna do the sign, but I guess my question to you guys, do you think this is what a lot of the people want? Because y'all spoken to a bunch of people that want clarity, want openness, want,
Well, I just have to say, I don't think transparency has anything to do with the sign. I think the sign is just more informational about current events or things taking place within the community. I'm just wondering, is this a top-of-the-line sign? Was there a mid-grade sign?
That is a mid-grade sign.
Okay.
We have some that are lower resolution. We have some that are higher resolution. You can buy them to the quality that your TV is sitting out front, but that wasn't the margins of numbers that we were looking at. As far as your content, A couple of recommendations that we made when we discussed this is you need to come up with a policy of what you will and what you won't advertise on it. It comes with a web-based training that can be taken at any point. If you bring someone in and they leave or they're unable to program it, anyone can sit down and do the course of minutes. And it's unlimited once you do that.
Well, I can see this thing utilized for a lot of things depending on what we want to do. I mean, that festival, that's great. You could post rezonings on there if you so desired, if we felt like people weren't seeing the sign. I mean, I feel like if we're going to utilize it, it probably could fill a lot of the desires of the people that want more, I guess, access to what we're doing. So I don't think it's a waste of money by any means. I mean, I just feel like if we're going to do it, we need to do it in a way that you can see it from the road without any trouble.
I need to remind you, we do have almost 15,000 earmarked in general fund.
True, yeah.
So it's already made and already there. So what comes out of this probably would be, I'm just going to say around, my math's not that good, but the math, maybe 28,000. Because we've already got some money that we fundraise.
That does fulfill a community, remember the vision board that we held a while back, that was one of the items that was discussed. And I was just looking at a mission of a meeting my wife attended way back in February of 2022. There was some signage conversations, so like I said, but I agree, I would like to see it. Yeah,
Right here, in our meeting with community members on March 25th, 2023, that was some of the recommendations, City Hall sign.
But I do agree that it needs to be visible, because I don't want to have a wreck trying to read it.
Exactly.
But of course, that also comes into programming too, because you try to put 30 things on the scroll.
Yeah, you're
It
right.
comes with programming and the person is programming it. And I'd like to say there's one program that fits all, but it does not. Your speed limit is 30 miles an hour, you got 3 lanes out here, so any program you do would be pretty easy to read. If you were a faster traffic and everything, then you slow messages and things like that down. And that's something that y'all will have to determine as you start to program it. If the messages are too fast for the traffic or too slow for the traffic. So there's some parameters that you will be trained in that, but you may decide that you want to move messages faster or slower. So now it's a little different in your situation, but what we recommend for most of our customers is to police yourself on this. So, because if you don't, someone will police you, but y'all are going to be using this a whole lot different from what most customers would be using it for businesses.
So as far as design, I mean, I'm apathetic as whether it's stone or cedar look. I don't care. I just wanted to decide. I wanted to accomplish the task. Right. So.
What does this calculate to as far as like a diagonal?
Okay.
How does this calculate to the diagonal? Like you can buy a TV and it's an 80-inch diagonal.
We don't calculate by diagonal. It is based on a amount of pixels high and a mixed amount of pixels wide. The modules in those signs are 9.5 inches by 9.5 inch squares, so it's an equal number of modules to come up with the length, and the same thing for the height.
So each individual module can be replaced if it goes bad, right?
That's correct.
You have an idea of the current cost of a module?
The first 5 years, they're all warranted for 5 years. After that, they're around $195 to $250.
Does that include vandalism?
What's that?
Does that include vandalism for the warranty?
Vandal?
I think our insurance probably would cover that.
Yeah, but are we gonna file a claim for something that's under?
No, we'd have to look at the warranty language, I don't know.
Vandal's not usually a big problem with them unless you're in a real rural area. We have had some where people like to take target practice in the rural areas, but the way the configuration of the panels are, they've got a louver that is above and below each one of the lines of LEDs on them. So anything that hits it like a ball and stuff like that typically doesn't hurt it.
The one at the middle school has been up for quite a while, and I don't think they've ever had any issue with vandalism on that.
Which one is that?
The one at the middle school.
Okay.
Mayor, I'll add, it's going to be depending on what this body decides to do, but we would be putting together some policy for this body to consider on what goes on it.
Okay.
But doing that first didn't seem appropriate till y'all made a decision. So
Okay.
that's not gonna be a free floating thing.
Oh,
Who
darn.
gets to sign off first, gets to sign off something, there's gonna be a policy.
Happy pizza special.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let me have a remote.
That might be a problem.
Are you gonna have the remote line? Is that what you
So who would be the administrator of the sign?
Probably Dixie, Jeff, right now let's see, Dixie does some of our towns, White Bluff. I mean, we have about 3 people that could be.
Ultimately, it's the council gets to pick the policy, but you're talking about day-to-day operation, it'll be someone on town staff, so Jeff, Misty, somebody.
Can we put down like delinquent property tax people?
You do.
I would recommend against that, for a number of reasons we can discuss, not in a public setting.
Okay. All right, I have a motion from Connie Reed, a second Carl Kincaid. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
So everybody voted yes.
Thank you.
We go to codes and permits, consider a second final reading of ordinance to revise zoning ordinance, Article 4, supplementary provisions applying to specific district section 4.010 off-street parking requirements. We had a public hearing, nobody spoke on it, so do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Moving on down to second, consider a second final reading and ordinance to revise zoning ordinance Article 2 definitions, Article 3, by adding section 3.140 open space standards, and Article 5 residential density, and repealing any ordinance or parts of ordinance in conflict therewith. We had a public hearing, no one spoke, so do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion?
I do want to discuss a little bit, even though the Jordan Circle property got pulled. So I just want to make sure that I'm correct in everything I'm saying, so I'm going to run this across Andrew and see. But basically, Jordan Circle, all right, you've got a bunch of R1 lots that don't meet the description of an R1 lot today. However, they were R1 lots before we imposed the restrictions. Therefore, you know, just in this particular situation, he has 3, basically, I think, R1 lots that he could probably build a single-family house on already. The reason that I particularly like the R2 zoning is because it got those lots into, I guess the legal would be correct for an R2 lot. It was, you know, and I think that whole subdivision probably needs to be looked at because of that. However, I think there's some miscommunication because to my understanding, those R2 lots would have only been 17,000 square feet, which would mean you could still only do a single-family home. You couldn't do a duplex or a divided duplex or any of that because you don't have, you know, to me, the way I understand it, if you've got a full 1 acre R2 lot, after we pass this, you'll be able to do 3 doors. If you've only got a half of an R2 lot, then that would only give you 1 door. And I just want to make sure that I'm correct in all of that analogy. So technically, you're not increasing the density by going to R2 in that area. You're just bringing your lots into, what's the word I'm looking for?
Conformity.
Conformity. So that, you know, and I just want to make that clear. It's not, you know, it's not that we're trying to, now I will say the R2 restrictions before, or what we're fixing to look at here, might have been a different scenario. But I think after this goes through, you know, if you don't have a large enough R2 lot, you're still one home.
No, that's a good thing to bring up. I don't think we've talked about it in any meeting so far, so that's a good question. So think of the density, because you're changing from minimum lot size, and then you get to do anything that the zoning ordinance says, versus density per acre. And if you're dealing with a 50-acre development, the fringes aren't going to be that contentious, I guess.
Right.
When you're dealing with a small lot, every little bit matters. I get that. But the way this works is they're like gates. If you have a 0.5-acre lot, and your R2 density, if y'all approve this tonight, is 3 units per acre, that's 1.5 units, right? That's 1 unit. There's no rounding. I don't care if you're at 1.99, that's 1 unit. You have to get to you have to have 0.67 acres to be able to do 2 units on an R2 lot. You have to be at 1 acre to do 3, 1.33, 1.34 to do 4. So it does kind of trim down those edges, I guess, if that makes sense, and that you're not rounding up. You have to, there's no fractional units. You have to be at a whole number of units, so it's 1, 2, or 3. I don't really care what the point is. So we have a prime example that got pulled, but there are 4 lots there. They are R1 lots currently, and for lots that were created prior to the zoning ordinance, and there's a lot of them in this town, you get 1 building permit. But you have to adhere to the building setbacks for that zoning district. So if it was rezoned to R2, there would be a difference in the setbacks between R1 and R2. You still get 1 building permit, but if that lot was 0.5, 1. If that lot could get to 0.67, you could get 2. So it just, you can come up with some examples where it gets a little weird on the fringes, but that's how we have to look at it, because that's a bright line rule. Whole number of units.
Just for clarity, getting math nerd on you. So let's say we had 1 acre divided by 3, if we were doing R2, 3 doors per acre, right? That would be 14,520 square feet per door, basically, is how the math works out. So in order for an individual to be able to get 2 doors on an R2 lot, he would have to get a 29,040 square foot lot to be able to get 2 doors on. That's
you'd have to have 2/3 of an acre.
That's what that is.
43,000 and change for an acre. So
43,560, 43,560.
I don't have that. Is that 2/3 of an acre?
Yeah.
So then, that's what it would
So
be.
that's what I'm trying to clarify. Yeah. Okay. But if the lot size is underneath that, then it doesn't matter if it's R1 or R2. You'd have to end up getting R3 before you could even consider having more density on it. Okay. That's what.
Or go buy a sliver from a neighbor to get there. They get a little wonky too, but it does get a little odd when you're dealing with old lots, because there's a lot that are legal non-conforming, right? So you get your 1 building permit and your setbacks, but I had a discussion with the applicant earlier about lot width, right? So that doesn't come into play with these grandfathered lots. You're only dealing with setbacks. So they can be pretty odd lots, but under the density calculation in this new version of this section of the ordinance, it's straight math, and you have to get the whole numbers.
Okay.
Any more discussion? Okay, I have a motion by Carlton Tate, a second by Reed. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passed. The next one has been pulled from the agenda. So we'll go on down to the building permit report.
In your packet, there were no building permits pulled in the month of August.
There was 1 sign, 3 accessory, 1 commercial that was actually just like a common area for Peyton, and then a pool, so there were no residential building permits.
What about the wash building? I thought it was July, the wash building.
I'm assuming it was.
Okay. We have the police department report.
We had 388 calls for service. Of that, 120 traffic stops, 68 citations, 66 warnings, 15 arrests this month. Well, for the month of August.
Normal products, that's good.
Yeah, no, it's not good. It's out there, we just ain't getting it. It's there.
Do you think, because I realize, you know, I think everybody realizes, you know, it's this legal spider web of that you're trying to battle, even pull somebody over and even try to find anything. Is there anything we can do at all that would help? I mean, and I don't know, you know, I'll leave that to you to answer that question, because I don't know. I mean, because I get where they're coming from. I mean, you literally, you pull somebody over, you've got a laundry list of legal, can I do this, can I do that? I mean, it's just almost got to be a perfect scenario.
One of the biggest things that we're running into with the K-9, running the K-9, is that due to lawsuits and federal court stepping in, they've changed the way, when I used to work a dog, I mean, I could get my dog out and run her around your car anytime. Well, now there has to be probable cause for us to run that dog, as well as we're on a time limit. If we hold somebody too long, we violate their rights. So the big thing that would help us, you guys are proactively doing by hiring new officers, because as long as it's within the traffic stop, if Austin pulls you over tonight, and while he's conducting his traffic stop, if Brent pulled up and ran the dog around the car, then it's legal.
Gotcha.
So that's one of the things that we're running into, is just the time frame of.
So basically, which we're all gearing toward this, as we all know, you know, but if we had, you know, and I'm assuming nighttime would be your optimal time, but if we had 2 officers on duty, then perhaps that number wouldn't be 0. Because I do see what you're saying. You don't have time to pull somebody over who doesn't give you proper calls and try to call somebody from home to bring the dog. It's probably not going to happen, because they're going to be sitting there counting minutes. They know as well as you do how long you can hold them.
That's correct.
So, yeah.
I mean, as far as in time, you know, we used to call it, you know, dope dealer time.
Mm-hmm.
They would, you know, go to bed at 5 o'clock in the morning and sleep till 3 o'clock, but that doesn't seem to be the case anymore.
If I were going to run dope, I'd run it at 8:30 in the morning, I'll be honest with you. I mean, so I agree with that. I mean,
I'd run it when it was raining,
yeah.
the weather was bad.
Mm-hmm.
Because police, you know, we don't like to get out in
Dog
it.
out in the rain, you know, so, all right, well, and I do think, you know, to me, you know, it's one of those things we're either going to have to pay the piper now or pay the piper later, and it's a lot easier to pay it up front than it is after the fact. That's one reason I'm for the property tax increase, because there's a lot of things that needs to happen, not only this budget year, but the coming budget years, and those are the things that I'd like to see that money go for: extra officers during the day, extra officers at night. I don't disagree with Sharon. I do think a lot of people, it does raise their property taxes. But I've got friends that live in cities that their gutters are literally ripped off their house on a monthly basis, and they scrap them. And I know that's extreme, it sounds crazy, but it's factual. They rip the mirrors off the cars. I mean, if you wait too long, then with growth comes crime, with crime comes dope. I feel if we don't pay for it now, we're going to pay double later. So.
And I agree with you. I mean, and I've told the mayor before, with the good comes the bad.
True.
I mean, you can have a lot of good families move in, but we have children. Yeah. And they don't always see eye to eye in the way we do, as well as people know that, hey, listen, we can go down the road, there's only one officer on duty. Why would we be up here messing in Metro when there's, you know, 100 officers out?
I talk to a lot of people, good, bad, everybody has information, useful information, so I talk to everybody. You know, one of the things that they like to do is if they're going to run, say, $10,000 worth of meth, I speed through the city in my Corvette, and you pull me over, you're the only officer on duty. Guess where you're tied up while I ride right through. And they do it. I mean, it happens. That's one of the easiest ways to do it in a city of ours.
That was always, you know, one of the deals when I worked on the interstate. You know, you'd have a car that would, you know, get our attention. Well, you know, they always said, you know, while we were dealing with one load of dope, there was 10 loads that went by.
Exactly.
And that's pretty much how it is. I mean, there's plenty of dope, there's plenty of drugs. Just gives, you know, the opportunity to find it. And things have, I don't know, things have got more dangerous these days.
Absolutely.
We have more officers being killed. The officers are more reluctant. You know, in the day I search a mini car by myself, but, you know, I don't like my guys doing it.
No, I don't blame you.
For safety reasons.
And they're not necessarily from here. I mean, this is traffic possibly coming through from other towns.
The bigger
from
shipments
other
are passing
cities,
through,
yeah.
they're not necessarily over here.
You got US 70.
Oh, yeah.
I know drugs, large amounts of drugs are going up down this highway to avoid I-40 because all the drug interdiction units are out working I-40. I mean, if I was going to run it, that's what I would do. I'd take a back road and, like you said, have a car to distract the attention.
Yeah. It's just.
Smoking the bandit, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
Well,
sir.
the sad part, you know, like I say, it's funny people will talk to you about anything, you know, and most of the ones that I've learned from are people that are in that life. You know, they may not be the one moving the dope, but they know damn well how it gets here. And, you know, and I think, you know, it would do us some great justice to listen. So, you know, and I know the property tax increase, that's a biggie, a lot of people mad, but like I say, you know, I don't, there's just so many things that need to happen. Fire department, police department, you know, this property tax increase isn't going to pay for it all. And I hope that we get enough, you know, sales tax that it helps us. But we got to start somewhere because I don't think just sitting idle is the answer, even though it hurts. I mean, it hurts, but anybody in this room, anybody in the city, you can't tell me that you can't give up something that is not a need but a want to help your city. I don't care who you are. Cigarettes, beer, eating out once, twice a week, there's something you can give up. And if you're not willing to do that, then you know, I think it's a sad time for our city.
Well, it's not just this, though. Let me interject something. We know that we have radio equipment, software equipment, et cetera, et cetera. That's coming down, probably maybe even next year that we're going to have to absorb that cost.
I was actually going to bring that up. I spoke with the 911 director.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the 911 board has approved that they are going to buy all the equipment, and they're going to give us the option of financing through them with no interest. They're going to eat the interest. They're going to eat the installation. So that should help. They're willing to put it on a 5-year note. I told them that I felt like the council would probably be in for that, just to save the money of the interest. And I believe they're going to get something to council and to you in the upcoming month or so, from what
Do
I
you have
understand.
a cost, though? I mean, we've got to figure out a payment in our budget next year. That is something we're not used. What I'm saying is that yeah, the no interest and the finances, that sounds great. Do you have a cost, though, that we're going to have to pay?
We've already gave that, it was around, for us in the fire department, it was around $260,000.
Okay.
I think it came, I actually got it this morning, it's $245.
$245.
So if it were financed that they're offering, and I think every jurisdiction in the county and the county are doing that,
Yeah.
it'd be just under $49,000 a year.
So that is another cost, though, that we've got coming that we're not used to paying. So we can't just keep holding back, and trust me, my taxes went up too. I'm paying taxes just like everybody else.
County went up too.
County went up too, yeah, but, so yeah, my county taxes and my city taxes. So I hear you, I empathize, but being citizen, I have to look at it like that, and yes, I mean, who wants to pay taxes? You know, of course. But being in the position we are here, paying and managing a city of almost 4,000 people, you have to look at it in a different way, a way that you don't want to.
well, I don't like paying taxes more than anybody else, but however, I'm a resident of White Bluff, and I understand if I want the trash pickup, I have to pay for it. If I want the fire department and police department, if I want a street department, I mean, I have to pay for it. It's just part of life. So, I mean, the tax increase personally does not, you know, bother me, because I realize that I want that luxury of rolling my can out to the road. I don't want to put it in the bed of my truck and drive it 2 miles up the road, personally.
But some of the, and I agree with everything you said, but some of these things honestly is mandated by the state. Some of this stuff, we have no choice. It's mandated by the state. I think this is one of the things coming down, is what I'm trying to say. We're gonna have to find a way to pay the whatever it is, $50,000 a year. That's gotta go in our budget. I'm assuming next year, 5 years straight, yeah.
And that's for the radios, and we're still working through, all the governments are working through it, so we'll have probably something for y'all next month, but that does not include the agreement you have to enter into with the state to use their towers, which is an annual fee. I think they amortize it monthly, but it's an annual fee per radio. So there's a little bit of a, that shouldn't be that much, but again, they were looking at some very expensive systems. I will say, to E911's credit, this was about a tenth the cost of what was being discussed of joining the state system, and it's still fairly expensive. So,
Nashville.
I do have another question.
Yes, ma'am.
So you guys have been talking about traffic stops, but what about buildings or residences? If people suspect that there's narcotic activity taking place, is that a call to you, or is that a call to the 23rd Judicial Task Force?
If you call me, I mean, all I can do basically is go out and do a knock and talk.
But can the drug dogs be used in that
If
situation?
they allow us, you know, to come into their premises, they would have to give us permission. Unless we have probable cause. If you were at a house and seen it and you knew it was on a metal tray underneath the couch, I can get a search warrant based on that.
But you need a warrant to do so?
Yes, ma'am.
We had an issue, Holman was police chief at the time, but we had an issue with the house that was slinging it all day long. And so the only options that we really had was, he said, you know, if they speed down the road, if they got to tail light out, I can pull them over. And he would. The problem was that most of the people that were going and coming were selling their prescription pills. And so they had their bottle with their name on it. You know, what do you really do? And so it's difficult. And that's one of the things that's a good question, you know, because, and basically, you know, and I'm not bashing task force, but if there's no money to be made, they're not coming. And that's just the bottom line. And whether that be by design or whether that be by desire, I do not know. But if the money's not there, you'll get no help.
I was told if we wanted to see them more, we needed to make a contribution, so.
When I got on, you know, council, I thought about that. I did. But I still feel, you know, because here's the problem. We as a council can hire a drug task force guy that works for us. He's going to sit on I-40, period. We're better off to hire our own people, buy our own dog, and do it that way. It's more expensive, probably, but you're going to get a better bang for your buck. And I'm not bashing them, I mean, but it's, you know, they fund themselves. So if there's no money, there you are. I mean, you do the math. If there's no money to be made, then.
And they have an entire 23rd district. I mean, they have a whole lot of people to, you know, there's not many of them.
Right.
So, of course, they're going to, you know, they're going to work I-40. It's been on the news a lot.
Right.
You know, but like you said, you know, they are making the money themselves in order. That's how they're getting their pay and their raises and their vehicles.
Can't list 10 houses and not make $1 when that's your budget. I mean, it's just math.
You know, unfortunately, a lot of drug cases you'll never see any money out of, especially locals. You know, they just won't pay. But what do? You try to, you know, turn them over to collections.
Right.
Most of them don't care. They don't care if their credit score is 300 or not. So it's
sad. I mean, and I can probably tell you 10 houses they're selling it out of right now. But there literally is absolutely nothing at this point we can really do. I mean,
all we can do is sit and watch, take license plates down, And generally, you know, if we know a house like that's running, I try to bring the task force in.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I also understand that there's a whole lot of space for them to cover.
Right.
I don't think they do as much street level as they used to. You know, they want pounds where we're happy with a few grams.
Mm-hmm.
So
The biggest, you know, and I'm not advising anybody to do this, the most effective thing I've ever done is when people pull in to the house next door to me, I go outside and write down a license plate number. You do that for about a month, and you'll be surprised the traffic that doesn't show up there anymore. And, you know, of course, that's not necessarily undangerous, but...
we had drug house down Hornell Road, at B's at the time.
Right.
Many nights I would pull up there and just turn my blue lights on and sit in the road.
I mean, it works. It's effective.
I mean, I knew they weren't fine while I was sitting there.
Exactly. You know.
Now, I mean, as soon as I left, they were probably, you know, but at least I can stop at just 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Fire department report.
Thank you. Have copies. Any questions?
Oh, copy, yes, I do have.
We might.
Like what?
Hey, this is good.
Yeah, I do like
You
that.
did a very good job.
Well, we started that last month. You were fine.
Looking back.
You were just fine. What's the total? What's the total? 60. Okay.
And the code 159, is that in the city?
That's the sheet.
And
And 165 is the area outside the sheet.
I was out of town, but I saw on Facebook, somebody else saying there was a structure fire or something the other night.
This morning.
Oh,
Well, it started last night, 9:49. I was there till 9 o'clock this morning when TBI came, so we had to babysit it till it came.
everybody okay?
There wasn't anybody in the house. Lost there was one pot belly pig that burned the house.
I was watching the news, Channel 2 or something outside or something this morning, and all of a sudden I saw where we had the cutest little dog in our fire department. And Garnish was talking about it.
That's when we had Lucky.
And then,
I had some
because
people
I
call
thought,
me
maybe
about
we
it.
get a dog, I didn't even think about that.
I had some people call me about it, but I haven't been able to find it.
It was a memory, yeah. I don't know why. It was,
Dalmatian.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
But when I saw Bernie come over there and he was so healthy, and he thought, oh, this has been a long time ago. And it was kind of like they were just doing a special on things that fire department would do.
Yeah, which I got the dog, so I had company. I was the only one working at the time, and Furnace still working his regular job.
Yeah. Okay, anybody, any questions for Eric? You do a good job, thank you.
Yeah, how'd you get questions?
I know, right? I'm not on top of it tonight.
Court report.
Yes, ma'am. For the month of August, there were 43 cases, 6 criminal and 37 traffic.
Any questions? Moving on down, discuss and consider procedure to change road names. Did you come up with anything, Andrew?
Not much more than what we talked about on Thursday. Again, you're dealing with the two hurdles if you change an existing street name are getting with E911 and your new finance company. That's one side. Again, that's an existing street that's already been dedicated over. The other thing we talked about was if this body wanted to send to the planning commission or adopt for themselves, I think subdivision regulations would be better, to have the planning commission consider the dedication process and any limitations on names. There's nothing within the town on what you could name a street. Maybe that's a good or a bad thing. I mean, no one's really tested the envelope too much with like a curse word. We don't have any policy to date. So in terms of future roads coming in, I think it'd be appropriate for this body to ask the planning commission to consider amending the subdivision regulations, and if y'all have some provisions you'd like them to consider, that would be appropriate by motion, so that, again, that's the future. For existing, if this body were inclined to change the name of an existing road, I would ask that you, by motion, tell us what road that is tonight, and allow us to get all of the information back to you in the form of an official resolution for next month. Just to, those parameters, and we say, look, we found there's only one mortgage company, and if we talk to E911, and here's what has to happen, that way you have a full picture, because I have not gotten all of those details, because I don't know exactly what road this body is wanting to address. Again, that's it's already been dedicated over. We would need to address it that way. So, with that being said, any questions, let me know.
I think my thought on it, one of my thoughts was, would there be an expense to do this to the city? If you change an existing.
Change an existing, I mean, you're talking time. Melody, Jeff, Misty, or me might have to be dealing with it a little bit. In terms of procedure, that's sort of a one-time, once the procedure's in place, you've got it forever until you change it. So, yes, there's going to be a cost anytime this body has town staff do anything, but I don't know specific costs until we know the length of road. And really, the mortgage is what I'm more worried about. But if there's only one, it could be fairly easy. If you're doing a long stretch of road with 100 different mortgages, that's going to be much more complicated. So.
And the post office,
E911 would take care of the post office.
Okay. So where do we want to go with this? Do I have a resolution to go back to the planning council? What are you going to do?
Well, we're talking about two different things.
Yeah, and there's motions tonight, but yeah, do y'all want a policy going forward for dedication? I think that would be A, tell me yes or no, basically, and then two, or B, is there any road that you want us to bring back to you as a resolution to change the name of, and what length, et cetera?
A, yes, I would like a policy to at least have the road name considered during the planning and zoning.
Okay, to put a finer point on that to help us, are you wanting the planning commission to have the authority to approve the name when a plat comes in, or I guess it would probably need to be the final plat. We can figure that out, but basically, the planning commission's approving at some point.
Right.
A road name. Is that, okay. Would you mind making that a motion for me?
I would like a motion where the planning and zoning commission approves the road name during
the platting process.
Thank you.
Okay. First.
I have a motion from Scott. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second? No. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Do we have any opposing? No.
I didn't see what caused.
Okay, I don't know what.
I'm sorry, I'm not very loud.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
I can't do
I
that.
think that's 509.
All right. And then you need another.
Well, again, if there's a particular road that you want us to bring back a resolution on with the details, I would ask for that tonight.
Before we move on that, I would really just like to ask the people who live there now if they're interested in that. If they're not interested in it, then I don't see any reason for going forward on that.
Yeah, I think that was discussed Thursday, again, separate from the policy y'all just voted on, but I have seen jurisdictions that say the governing body will not take this up unless a threshold is met, right? I've seen 50%, I've seen 75%. You can pick whatever number you want, because you don't want one of 50 lot owners on the road causing y'all to have to vote on it. Buy-in from the people who live on it seems appropriate, I think, and then I've seen that again. It gets more involved in larger jurisdictions. I mean, I'm talking about Chattanooga, Jackson, Columbia, these jurisdictions get more name change requests in roads, and so they're looking for buy-in from those who live on the road first. So if that's something y'all want to put in place, not necessarily at this moment, that could be added to a work session of, do you want procedures on what it takes for y'all to even consider a name change to a road? Obviously, any council person could bring it up on their own, but I'm talking about the public bringing it to you. Something to consider, to your point of, let's see what the people on the road want. I mean, it'd be kind of in that vein. It's just something to think about.
And then, is there a third element, because I believe we discussed on Thursday that some communities have street naming policies or procedures to begin with? Aside from the planning commission approving it during the planning process, are there any other kind of standards?
So with that motion, what I was planning on doing was getting with Jeff and probably Amanda on those procedures would be in the subdivision regulations, some parameters. If this body wanted to have its own policy, I don't want to conflict with subdivision regulations, but if you wanted your own policy on what is acceptable in terms of road names, that can be explored. I would want them to kind of be in concert, because again, subdivision regulations stay with the planning commission, you won't see them again. So if you have directive for that, we would need to kind of filter that down to the planning commission. But you can also have your own policy, but your policy wouldn't really be coming into play until you accept dedication of the road, which is fine. Again, if you have a policy, we would make sure any developer knows what that policy is, and we'd be able to say, look, the governing body, the council, probably won't accept this road unless you are in compliance with this policy, and you call this road, red, blue, some stupid name. We're not going to accept that, whatever that policy is. So you can explore that. I don't think that's something y'all want to create sua sponte tonight, but it could be added to a future work session to talk about. Or maybe y'all just start with PC and see what they come up with, and if there's disagreement, hopefully not, but if there is, y'all could develop your own policy on top of it.
I was going to say, couldn't we just use the discretion of the PC and see how that works?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's nothing that limits y'all's ability to adopt a road name policy down the road.
Right. Kind of what they do. It's in their realm. And if it was brought to us, it'd be kind of after the fact.
Correct. So y'all already voted on that. That's going down to PC, so we will do that.
Okay, all right. Discuss and consider on-street parking violations.
So Mayor, I know we talked about this on Thursday, and I think y'all were, my homework for you was, tell me what you're looking for, and there were several different paths discussed. One was just a type of street, say all streets and subdivisions, no parking. That's blanket, that's easy on the front end, but that's a lot of streets with no parking. This body could, by resolution, designate certain sections of street to have certain no parking signs. I know we talked about on the edge of the road or curb or whatever. That's possible. The other thing I see that is common, we just did one in another jurisdiction, was designate someone with town staff the ability to put up signs if it's an issue area, right? One thing I did notice looking back at some other ordinances in other jurisdictions, in your parking, and I know we've talked about this before, the parking sideways on White Bluff Road, that car's getting towed, right? But it would be nice to have it in your code that the obstruction of normal traffic is prohibited. You don't have that currently. So that might be a nice provision to add to give the police chief a little bit more leeway. Other than abandoned cars, we don't have the ability to tow. So that was kind of the last element of everything we've been talking about is a ticket, a $50 ticket, you come to court, that whole process. We have not talked about the ability to tow, and that requires a lot of, you have to be very clear signage that this is a no parking area to tow. So I think those
what would constitute an abandoned vehicle?
Let me pull it up, I think it's 72 hours, is that right, Chief? 72 hours it's been left on the side of the road.
When you slap a paint sticker on it.
I think the officer who decides that it's abandoned has noticed it for 3 days, basically, and it gets taken to our tow lot, and then the owner there's notice procedures, but the owner has the ability to come claim the car and pay the applicable daily fine. At some point, if they don't for months, it gets put on gov deals and sold off. So, but that's an abandoned car, and that's more long-term. I think some of this is looking at, at least from the discussion I got Thursday, what if there's a car that parks and within the hour there's an issue, right? It's not considered abandoned. Are you preventing a school bus from getting down the road? Are you preventing police cars from getting down the road? Ambulance, things like that. So, again, we don't have a specific code provision on obstructing traffic. So if we were going to rework the code section, the dated code section that I gave y'all on Thursday, Chapter 6 of Title 15, I would want to add that because I think that's good to have generally. It doesn't address towing. It doesn't address where you're putting up signs and what streets. That's a side note. But really what we would need from you all, and we add it to the next work session, is do you want blanket designations for no parking or specific designations? And do y'all want to do it one-off by resolution from time to time when issues come up, or designate someone with the town to be able to do that? And again, that's not irreparable. If this body, let's say the person you designate is putting up no parking signs everywhere, you could address that. I don't think you'd have that problem, but if this body, you're in charge of roads ultimately. This council is in charge of your public roads. If you don't like what's happening on them, you can alter that. But do you want every other month some resolution coming to you about a stretch of road that needs no parking? That's up to y'all. That could clutter up your agenda, and that's usually something that gets delegated out. It doesn't have to be. I recommend that it be, but that's something to consider. The other thing we don't have is narrow roads. I know a lot of our roads are not up to current town standards, and I forget if it's 12 and 12 or 12 and a half and 12 and a half for each lane. But on narrow roads, you could say no parking at all. A lot of different ways to go about it. It really boils down to what is the concern that you're trying to address right now, and knowing that if an additional concern comes down the road, there's nothing that prevents this body from amending the ordinance.
What I was just trying to prevent is something like Stephanie brought up. On her road, there's a house in the corner right there, right off the White Buck Road. They have 5 cars lined up on the road, and 4 more in their driveway. And even in Greenfield Ridge, there's people who continuously, park their car on the road when they have driveway space available. It's just things like that, and I don't think you could just say in all subdivisions, because the road right off of White Buck Road is not a subdivision as far as I know, as far as literal definition. So,
yeah, I think what we would typically do is we would call it the local. Is that our designation? So local roads, basically the roads that dead end with houses on them, would be the biggest blanket you could cast. Don't know if I'd recommend that, but that would be that type. Obviously state highways are kind of at the top.
Right.
Then you have your arterials. That's really White Bluff Road and a few others. A lot of everything else would be the local road.
we just don't want, fire department and ambulance having trouble getting to a place, especially when people on one side, and one parks on one side up here, another parks on another side here.
Personally, I would be vehemently against blanket policies. I think that's over intrusive on people's property rights and things. I am not opposed if we have specific occurrences that our police chief specifically, just to bring to our attention, hey, we're having a problem on this road, or anybody in the council or the mayor who has noticed a specific road. Sure, let's put up some signs or paint a curb. Entirely fine with that, but I would personally would rather do that on a case-by-case basis if we were seeing an existent. Now, as far as just a general obstruction, I'm fine with that too. So that way it would give the police chief and the officers freedom that if there's something that is right then obstructing them, they know they would have some freedom to do that. But as far as just a general blanket policy across White Bluff for all roads like this, I would be personally against that. I would be more comfortable with a case by case.
And just for clarity, is the case by case you're talking about going to the council or designating somebody?
I would be either one.
Take the police chief, he can have certainly input.
I trust our police chief.
Yeah. I mean, if he
It's up
comes
to
up.
him if he wants to decide to put up, but that's not typically what's done, because he's enforcing it. It's usually better if it's someone with town staff putting it up, and then he's the enforcement officer.
Like the public works department.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he, to me, I will, if I see it, I'll call Chris. Chris, go out there and look and see what you think.
Yeah.
If you
But he's
think-
not physically putting up the sign.
No, Public Works would do that.
One of the things I'd like to gear toward, and I've had conversations with a couple of people about this, you know, I would love to see us at some point have a codes enforcement person, man, woman. And that to me would be something, you know, I don't want them doing building permits, I don't want them doing inspections. All they're really doing is responding to complaints, or, you know, if somebody says, hey, there's a problem with people parking in the street, they would be the person to go out and look at that. That's something I would like to see us looking forward doing, because I do think, you know, they would be utilized in a lot of ways.
So like I said, for me, like I've got a neighbor who's got a big work truck, and he parks, most of his tires are completely in his property. It doesn't hurt the flow of traffic at all. I wouldn't want to move against something like that or deal with any pay. But like if Stephanie brings something, she's like, we've got 30 cars on my street. All right, let's put up some fines. You know, that's why I'm just like, I'm not comfortable with blanket, but with case by case, I would be entirely fine with that. And then some sort of language, like I said, for obstruction of the flow of traffic, like if that way, if the officer notices, hey, we got a fire truck or a school bus can't get through, that we would be able to give them some leeway there.
We've actually had that happen before in a cul-de-sac over in Greenfield, where there were cars parking in the cul-de-sac, and the school buses, this has been a couple of years back, could not turn around, and it had to be addressed. So that does happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
If I could speak on this just a second.
Of course.
I don't have a problem being that guy, but I would make a suggestion that myself and the street department overseer be in jail, that before we started saying, hey, we put up signs, that we meet and discuss about it if we know that we're getting complaints. You know, I mean, he gets a lot of emails from individuals complaining about things like this. So, I mean, I would want to work hand in hand with him. There are some areas that we know, you know, needs to be marked no parking, Jordan Street, Jordan Circle, I'm sorry, you know. It's a danger. Our policy right now, it doesn't give us any leeway to do anything about it, really. But if we adopt them, like what you're talking about, giving us that right to, hey, you know, you're in a bad area. But like I said, I would suggest myself and Jeff get together about before any signs go up.
Agreed. I think that's kind of what we kind of all thought anyway.
So what would be the official, you give the street departments the power, and that way if us as a council member have noticed something, we say, hey, Mr. Street Department, can you look into this? Yeah, and that way the street department will make a recommendation for us to put a sign on it.
Okay. We good on that?
Is that good?
Everybody where we're going with this?
I think I've got enough for Jeff and I to work on a draft. Do you want any towing ability outside of abandoned vehicles?
Absolutely.
The only thing I can think of that would be appropriate is if the obstruction is such that it's preventing the flow of traffic. Not making it hazardous, where you're having to come in a little bit. It's preventing the flow. I think I would want that if you're going to go that route. Otherwise, it's a parking ticket.
I concur.
And I would want to spend some time talking to Jeff and the police chief on the mechanics of this, but we can almost certainly have a draft first reading for you next month. And we may have to play with it more. But having someone be able to, based upon complaint, consult and put up signs y'all hear of something, tell them, consult, they put up signage that allows the police department that does not have it right now, the ability to at least ticket. I think you could curtail some parking that is a problem. So I think we could, Jeff, is there more you need at the moment?
No, I was just gonna ask, would you just get a motion?
I move to do all of that.
Any way you want.
Move to work on an ordinance establishing new parking standards?
As you
Street
said,
parking,
sir.
street parking standards.
Street parking standards, yes.
Okay. All right, we'll make that motion. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, passed. One on down to Parks and Recreation, I don't really have anything, now. We have a great park board now, I can tell you that. They're already talking about the Christmas parade. They're working on, we had a great one last year, and now some of those people have come over and they're still on the park board this year. They're working on Main Street Festival. They got a lot of good ideas. Any old business? Any new business?
I have one thing I'd like to add to next month's meeting.
Okay.
So, I'm interested in seeing if we could get our officers a shooting range out there behind, I guess that would be Coaching Park.
Yeah.
There's grants that they can apply for, it's like 50/50. And I would just like to kind of let Chris have an opportunity to look into that and kind of let us know what he would need and what grants that he knows of that are available. And then if we do decide to put some money toward that, how much would that be, and can we do that?
Yeah. Where y'all having to go to now, too? You have to put in so many hours or something on the...
Yes, ma'am. It's not many that's required by the state. It's only 8 hours a year, which is crazy. Being that an officer is responsible for every round that he fires, the city's liability. That was one of the reasons that I talked to you and council before about the possibility of a shooting range. I would like to be able to have something here. It would only be open to law enforcement. It doesn't have to be a real big one. That way the guys, get on the range. I can get them on the range every month or every other month. Back in the day, we would go to the range one time a year to shoot our 50 rounds, qualify, and that's it. I would like to know that the officers are going to hit whatever they're shooting at. To answer your question, right now we usually go to Dixon. We have issues trying to get access to their range. So many departments use it. With their in-service. We try to get on the range once a quarter. This year we have not been on it. So we have not been able to get with them and get a time.
Well, would it be possible to have the range in our town, but have other municipal police departments come and use it and pay a fee?
That's always, you could, but charging other police departments, I wouldn't suggest that. Right now, like the county and the city, they're always really good about letting us go in service. If we have an officer that needs to get into training, they don't charge us anything.
Right.
So if we start getting, that shit for tat, we may end up owing more than what we're gaining.
I didn't know if the shooting range in Dixon charged you.
They do not.
Oh, okay.
They may charge the private. I know they also allow some of the officers that do these private lessons. They may charge them, but I don't know exactly.
I guess it's kind of called, you could look at it as mutual aid.
Yes, ma'am.
Jeff, I got a question for you related, because this will help me in my studies. So if I could get the dirt work donated, the OSHA work donated, can we still, if we have to match a grant, will that count? Okay.
Usually it's just called in-kind donation.
Gotcha.
So you can.
I'd be a fan of that. I hang out with a lot of ex-military guys. understand the value of practice drilling or rehearsing
Absolutely.
in multiple different scenarios. It's very necessary.
So, do we need a resolution or something?
Just put on it. I think it was just put
Yeah,
on
you want to
there.
put it on?
Kind of give him time to kind of research and
Okay.
meet and see what I could do
Okay.
as well.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
No, I'm making a motion to.
We're not gonna second it, what do you think we're second? I'll second.
I'm putting down somebody back in here.